Okay, you guys are at the top of the hour, so that means we're going to go ahead and get our party started. Again, thank you all so very much for being here on our Wednesday night edition of the April ILCA 5-Day Challenge. My name is your Queen Connectress, Miss Marnita Casa, and I am your humble hostess for this evening. Now, it is my honor and my pleasure to introduce you all to a man that for over 25 years dominated the direct sales industry. His cryptocurrency education is being used by companies and universities worldwide. For over 6 years, he dedicated his life to learning about cryptocurrency and blockchain technology, but he didn't just stop there. He decided to go out and share his information with the masses. And he did this by putting on fun and exciting Bitcoin boot camps nationwide at no cost. He has built thriving communities and wonderful platforms like you see before you now. So without further ado, it is my honor to introduce you all to Mr. Brandon Ivey.
All right, all right. Thank you for that introduction, Miss Casa, and welcome everybody else for day 3 of the 5-day challenge. So if you are brand new, we welcome you. If this is your first week or if this is your first night, this is something we do once a month at no cost to the public to give the public an opportunity to hear about what this Bitcoin and crypto space is all about. I remember when I first started to really hear about it and take it seriously, there was no place for me to go to learn about this. There was no education. There was no academy. Even friends of mine that were involved in this space didn't even understand it or know what it was. Yet they were investing heavily in this space, and some were making a whole lot of money during the years of 2016 and 2017. Then I quickly learned that without this education, you're going to end up losing a lot, which they all figured out in 2018 when the market started to tank on everybody, when after Bitcoin reached its $20,000 high. And as you see from the sign behind me tonight, we're going to be covering the Bitcoin halving. Now, we are streaming on Facebook, but Facebook just changed their algorithms on us again. And they're not allowing Zoom to stream live into our own private 5-day challenge group. So what I have to do was stream it publicly and then share it into the 5-day challenge group. So I'm going to make some changes. Next month's 5-day challenge, we're going to be on Zoom right here for all of you guys that are VIP members, but then I'm going to stream directly to YouTube. I have an ILCA YouTube channel that I rarely use. I'm going to start paying more attention to it and adding to it so you guys can be subscribed to that channel to see a lot of updated content. And I'm going to be streaming the 5-day challenge into the YouTube channel. So those who are not VIP members can watch it live on YouTube without any problems. So let's get started tonight. Now, tonight, my guest panelist was my professor, Oscar Sistrom from Morehouse College. I know he had another engagement that I think might be running late. So I don't see him on, but we're going to keep on going with God. No, this is the topic he wanted to talk about. Every time we bring him on, he covers the Bitcoin halving. In fact, his long-term strategy about his building his crypto portfolio is based on the Bitcoin halving. He plays the long game. A lot of people get into crypto because they want to get rich quick. They want to make some money now. They hear people getting rich overnight and say, yeah, I want to do that as well. But he's got a long-term strategy on this and not even really looking at what he can make for himself, but what he can leave for his children and his grandchildren. That's why he's doing everything that he's doing. So on that theme, what I'm going to talk to you guys about is a little bit about understanding timing and positioning and how to be able to make a decision and make the right decision to be able to make more money, which is what everybody wants to do. Most people right now are making their money, their month-to-month money on a 9-to-5 job. And you want more money, but you don't really know how. And you can only do what you were taught and what you were shown what money is. And you've been taught you got to work a 9-to-5 job and get a skill set to make some money. And if it's not enough, then you might have to either learn a new skill set or get a second job or ask for a raise or work harder on your job so you can get recognized and get a promotion. But those are really your only choices the average person thinks there is. But then they turn around and they see that, wow, there's other people living the lives of your dreams. They have all the nice houses and cars, and they're taking nice vacations, and their kids are going to school, and they're stress-free when it comes to money, and they just buy whatever they want whenever they want. How are they doing that? We're not talking about those that are born into wealth or getting inheritance, but people, I mean, and a lot of these people don't even have a college education. What are they doing different? Well, what they figured out how to do is understand, especially if you're starting from scratch, you first got to understand where is an industry that is generating money. You know, one of my mentors, I never forget the story that she shared on social media about her daughter. Now, her and her husband are both entrepreneurs. They've been self-employed since they were in their 20s. They've made 7 and 8 figures. So their children grew up with that lifestyle. So when it came time for the daughter to go to college, and she was looking at what field of expertise should I choose? And it was, so she looks up the fields and then says, okay, let me Google what is the income potential of each of these fields. And she asked her mom, well, which one of these is going to make me $1 million? Because none of them say that. There was no field in that showed how to make $1 million if you get this degree in this field. And the one thing that the school doesn't teach is becoming an entrepreneur. Not even business school. Business school even teaches you not to start your own business, but how to run somebody else's company. Did you ever figure that out? I learned that in college. In fact, Professor Sistrunk was teaching that. Another professor that nearly kicked me out of his class when I started asking the right and wrong questions. I said, well, if I want to be wildly successful, one, I have to have my own business. And if I have my own business, then I have to pick the right industry. See, that's the key. So no matter where you are today, the question remains the same. What industry is generating enough money for me to live the lifestyle that I want to live? Did you know that even as of right now, 70% of all jobs offered in America, even if you have a college degree, do not pay a livable wage? 70%, which means to make a livable wage, you need to have at least 2 parents or 2 adults in the household working full time, and your combined income may be a livable wage. If you have 2 people in the household earning $75,000 a year, that's $150,000 combined. I'm sorry to tell you that's not enough. Not even if you live especially if you live in California. That's not enough. Then the government considers that middle class. No, that's just a higher level of broke. You know, you might be able to have enough income coming in to qualify to get a house that you're paying a high mortgage and interest rate on, qualify to get a loan to get a car, which is paying a high monthly fee on. So you're living, but there's nothing left over after you pay all your bills, and you're just steadily climbing into debt. So the system is already stacked against you. So you've got to find what industry would allow, if I'm going to spend my time on something, it will pay me or reward me with the money I think I deserve to have. My grandpa used to always say, work hard at everything you do. I don't care if you're a street sweeper or an elevator operator, be the best one at it. Well, he's partly right, because that old saying, hard work pays off. I also realize that the hardest working people in America are the brokest, because what matters if you're working hard in an industry that's not going to pay you or has a ceiling on how much they can pay you? You can be the best at it. You're just still going to be broke. So if you're going to work hard at something, make sure it's in an industry that's going to allow you to earn unlimited money, so that the only barrier is your own personal work ethic. That's how I operate. It's philosophy of performance. So even if I'm the best street sweeper out there, I'm still getting paid a street sweeper's salary. So you want something better than that. So the right question to ask is, what industry is where the new river of money pointing to. This is where this Bitcoin halving comes in, because it's shedding light on that industry. Right now, 2017, I learned two things. The blockchain, and we covered what is the blockchain last night. Blockchain technology is going to disrupt every single industry on the planet today. It doesn't care what you believe or what you think you know. What you know is irrelevant. This is going to happen the same way the internet disrupted every business on the planet. There's not a company that doesn't have an internet or web presence, period. Hell, even kids have a web presence today. Everybody does, even as an individual. And then the second thing that I learned is that cryptocurrency, which is riding on top of that blockchain technology. Oh, this is a good time tonight. I can play that video that Leonard had created about the blockchain. I'll do that later with the train. But the industry, the cryptocurrency that sits on top of the blockchain technology, is going to bring the greatest economic shift in wealth in the history of mankind for the most amount of people. I've been saying that since 2017, and I have proof of it right now. What is my proof? Anybody ever heard of a company called BlackRock? And if you haven't, let me inform you. That is the largest management fund on the planet. More than $10 trillion in investments that they manage, run by one guy named Larry Fink. He's one of those shadow guys in the world that controls the destiny of the financial situation of the world. When he speaks, banks listen, politicians listen, and other billionaires and wealthy people listen. They may not understand why he's doing what he's doing, but they pay attention to it. And he's the reason why the SEC, that has been notoriously negative against Bitcoin and crypto for years, approved the Bitcoin ETF earlier this year. What does that mean? Well, it now opened the door to wealthy institutional investors who don't understand Bitcoin or crypto, but they do realize that it has been the best performing asset of the past decade. It opened the door for them to be able to invest in this space without having to take the risk, meaning they don't have to actually buy the Bitcoin. They can just take positions on it. Let BlackRock take all the risk. They just pay BlackRock a fee. BlackRock owns all the Bitcoin. And now with that institutional money, we now have billions of dollars flooding into this space from wealthy individuals. So for everybody else who's looking for a way to make more money but don't know where to go to do it, you are now watching what the wealthy people are doing. Follow the money. If they're paying attention to it, that means we should also pay attention to it as well. Because if they're doing it and they're already rich, then what is that telling us? We need to get involved. And at this beginning stage, we still have a small window of opportunity to be able to change not just your own personal financial future, but those of your descendants after you, based on what you do today and over the next 5 years. Because in my opinion, I think that this window is, we only have 4 years. Well, 5 years, 2029, when the next bull run will take place. We only have 5 years. After that, will there still be opportunities? Yes. Yes, there will. Will it be as great as it is right now? No. In fact, Bitcoin, you won't even be talking about Bitcoin. You'll be talking about Satoshis, pieces of Bitcoin. The ability to own one Bitcoin will be out of reach for most people. It'll be more than the cost of a house. I said this in 2017 when I first started doing crypto talks. The goal is to own, if you own at least one whole Bitcoin, you're good. If you own a quarter of a Bitcoin, just 25% of it, and put it aside and forget you have it, By the end of this decade, you will be in the top 1% of all asset holders on the planet. You'll be in the wealthy class. Now, that is still in reach for everybody right now. What's 25% of $64,000? That's still in reach. The key thing is to get your hands on it and not spend it. One thing you want to do for your children and your grandchildren is create a crypto account for them, a crypto wallet, and just put $50 a week or $50 a month of Bitcoin or crypto in that wallet. The kid don't even know what's going on or what it is. But 10 years from now, when they're graduating from college, they're not graduating in debt. They've got an asset that has been accumulating for the last 10 years. Who knows what the value of that's going to be in 10 years? But that's a good way for them to start off their life. Yet that might grow to $40,000, $50,000, $100,000 from you just putting in $50, $100 on a consistent basis over the next 5 to 10 years. Now you're getting them a good head start. You know what wealthy people do when they create trust funds? You think wealthy people just pass money down to the next generation? Yes and no. The trust fund is created when the baby is born, and there's a certain amount of money that's in it. And then it just accumulates in value and interest over the next 20 years. So by the time that kid reaches college age, their college is paid for because of the trust fund. There's money now that kid can create their first business when they come out of school. They have seed money to buy their first house without having to go get a loan from the bank. That's how the wealthy do it. That's how the Kennedys do it. Why, there can be 500 of them and they're all still wealthy 4 or 5 generations removed. The worst is just, oh, I have a will and I'm passing down my money to the next generation. Well, now your money's being split amongst 4, and then the grandchildren split amongst 20, 30, and nobody created a trust. That's another conversation. But to get yourself started so that you can even be in a position to create a trust, you have to be in front of the river of money. And all indicators are proving that this new river of money in the financial future is Bitcoin. So now let's get into what exactly is the Bitcoin halving, this mysterious rare event that happens once every 4 years. Oh, where is it? Right. There we go. Happens once every 4 years. Let me pull this over here so I could see you guys. And I think this is this is the 3rd time I've given this lesson here. So this might be new for some of you, and it will be a review for others. But either way, I still guarantee you're going to learn something new, even if you've seen this before. Bitcoin halving. The available supply of fiat currencies rises and falls under the watchful eyes of national central banks. But the total supply of Bitcoin is fixed and immutable. There will only be 21 million Bitcoin ever in existence. Presently, more than 19 million Bitcoins have already been mined, leaving under 2 million left to be created. The Bitcoin protocol periodically reduces the number of new coins earned by miners in a process called halving. One of the most important features of Bitcoin is its limited supply and issuance mechanism. Halving's role in controlling the supply of new Bitcoins is one of the reasons the world's most popular cryptocurrency is seen as a store of value that's more akin to gold than a fiat currency. To understand the Bitcoin halving, we must first understand the theory behind its supply. The inventor of Bitcoin, Satoshi Nakamoto, believed that scarcity could create value where there was none before. After all, there's only one Mona Lisa, only so many Picassos, a limited supply of gold on Earth. Bitcoin was revolutionary in that it could, for the first time, make a digital product scarce. there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin. The idea of limiting Bitcoin supply stands in marked opposition to how fiat currencies such as the US dollar works. Fiat currencies initially were created with firm rules. To create $1, the US government needed to have in reserve a certain amount of gold. This was known as the gold standard. You'd be surprised how many people out there today still believe we are on the gold standard. They say Bitcoin is not real. It's made up monopoly money, not backed by anything. At least money's backed by gold. Really? Really? My brother said that. My brother said Bitcoin is backed by gold. He was born in 1978. We got off the gold standard in 1971, before I was even born. In fact, I know he was on vacation. Oh, okay, he's back. I see him. Yeah, I like that. This is new iPhone. I track everywhere he's at. He's back home now. I see him. All right. He was living it up in St. John's the other day. But there's only going to be 21 million ever in existence, which is similar to gold in the fact that there's only a limited supply. Over time, these rules eroded as modernizing economies during bouts of extreme financial uncertainty, like the Great Depression and World War II, printed more money to help stimulate struggling economies. Over time, these rules evolved into today's system, in which governments can, broadly speaking, print money whenever they'd like. Satoshi Nakamoto believed that this devaluation of fiat money could have disastrous effects, and so, with code, prevented any single party from being able to create more Bitcoin. Embedded in the Bitcoin code is a hard cap of 21 million coins. New Bitcoin is released through mining as block rewards. Miners do the work of maintaining and securing the Bitcoin ledger and are rewarded with newly minted Bitcoin. However, about every 4 years, the reward for mining is halved, and each halving reduces the rate at which new Bitcoin enters the supply, a process that likely will last until 2140. So every 4 years, we're down in half, and then half, and then half, and then half. Why will it take all the way to 2140? Because it's cut in half. A brief history. 2009, Bitcoin mining rewards start at 50 BTC per block. 50. 2012, the first Bitcoin halving reduces mining rewards to 25 Bitcoin. 2016, in the second halving, mining rewards go down to 12.5 Bitcoin. Now, that's the year I bought Bitcoin for the first time, but I didn't understand what was going on. 2020 was my first Bitcoin halving experience. So this was the third halving. Mining rewards dropped from 12.5 Bitcoin to 6.25 Bitcoin. And then last Friday, we dropped down in 2024. In the fourth halving, mining rewards dropped to 3.125 Bitcoin. So that's a good question. If we go from 2009 to 2012 was not 4 years. Well, actually, we look at 2008 when Bitcoin was created. But the mining rewards really kicked in at the beginning of 2009 because it was near the end of 2008 when Bitcoin went live for the very first time. And there wasn't that many people mining it. So there was a little stretch. And if you notice on the dates, every Bitcoin halving is shortened. So this year's Bitcoin halving happened in April. The countdown clock is already on. So the next Bitcoin halving in 2028 is going to happen sometime in March. So it's coming down every 4 years. In 2140 will be the 64th and last halving will occur, and no new Bitcoin will ever be created. Will we be around in 2140? Well, let me say this. Anybody ever heard of Jared Kushner? Former President Donald Trump's son-in-law? He was on an interview and it was late at night. I was watching it, half asleep. And the guy was kind of saying, you know, what do you say to the critics who always talk about you look so young and you look like you're a teenager? And he said, well, there's one thing I understand, he says, I'm trying to keep up with my health because I believe with all of this new technology that's here, either my generation will be the last generation to die or the first generation to live forever. Huh? I woke up when he said that. And then when the interviewer tried to give him a follow-up question to that, he shut up. And Jared, well, I'm not gonna get into that. He's not gonna talk about that. Well, what is he talking about? You got to think about that. The AI technology and stuff that we have now, have we found the fountain of youth? Can technology extend our lives in one way or another? There are a lot of shows out there. Upload, Altered Carbon, was even, I don't want to give that one away. That's a spoiler alert if I say the name of that one. But there's a lot of stuff out there about technology to have transfer humans' consciousness into a machine, or our body parts will become half human, half machine some kind of way. I don't know. That's going to be a whole nother field. In fact, guys in the diamond class, the next week when we do our diamond class again, we're going to be on artificial intelligence. We've got 15 lessons to cover. So we'll dive into all of that next week. But 2140, the last Bitcoin halving. Halving will be happening. So what's so special? If a person, group, or government is trusted to set up the money supply, they must also be trusted to not mess with it. I want to make sure I get messing around looking for my brother. Here we go. I can see you guys on Facebook. Bitcoin is supposed to be decentralized. You know what that means again? It is not run or controlled by a business, a government, a CEO, a central entity. It is completely open, decentralized, and trustless. No one is in control, and there's no one to trust. Since Bitcoin is not controlled by any one person or group, there must be strict rules about how much Bitcoin is created and how it's released. It's the ultimate smart contract. By writing a total supply and halving event into the Bitcoin code, the monetary system of Bitcoin is essentially set in stone and practically impossible to change. We talked about this last night. It would take billions of dollars to hack the blockchain and mess with just one block. Each block is created every 10 minutes. So if right now this new halving, 3.125 Bitcoin, that comes out to about a little over $200,000. Yeah, a little over $200,000. Is anybody willing to spend billions of dollars to do that? It's not worth it or the time. The only thing you can have is bragging rights. And I said yesterday, there's only one person on the planet who has the money to do it and is crazy enough to do it. And that, in my opinion, will be Elon Musk. Just to say, I broke the Bitcoin. He would spend billions of dollars to do that. I don't think he ever would, but that is technically kind of possible. It's just very, very expensive to do. Bitcoin miners. Bitcoin halving is when the reward for Bitcoin mining is cut in half. Halving takes place every 4 years or so, roughly. The halving policy was written into Bitcoin's mining algorithm to counteract inflation by maintaining scarcity. Now, that's a word everybody has heard. inflation. That's where your dollar loses value because the cost of things rises. So that same $20 you go to the grocery store with, you're not coming home with the same amount of groceries. The key is to stay ahead of inflation. I remember what Jim Rohn always talked about. It said inflation, a lot of wealthy people never see inflation because every year they make more money than on a percentage basis than the rise of inflation. That's the key. If inflation is at 2% a year, if you're earning an extra 3% per year, you're ahead of inflation and your standard of living never changes. But if you're hoping that you're getting a 2% raise every year, but inflation is at 3 or 4% a year, you're losing money for the same amount of work. So here, to prevent inflation, what's written into the code is scarcity, so that there will always be a higher demand than there is supply. In theory, the reduction of the pace of Bitcoin issuance means that the price will increase even if demand remains the same. So I said this the other day. Even if there's no new demand for Bitcoin, and we're right here, by the halving taking place and you're reducing the amount of new Bitcoin hitting the market, even if demand is the same, there's less Bitcoin to get from, the price goes up. But what BlackRock did, BlackRock brought a higher demand than already was there. Plus the Bitcoin halving of less supply, we now have a supply crunch. Because people have woken up and saying, I'm not selling my Bitcoin. I don't care it went up by 40%. This thing one day might be worth $1 million a coin. I think I'll sit on it. Thank you. I don't think I'll take a profit today. So that's even creating more hyper activity with the price of Bitcoin, which happened the first time ever. Bitcoin reached an all-time high right before the Bitcoin halving. Normally, the opposite takes place. At the moment, Bitcoin has an inflation rate of less than 2%, which will decrease with further halvings. Bitcoin's production scarcity is what defines its finiteness. And when reward goes down, supply is constrained. Increasing demand at a time when supply is constrained has a positive impact on price, which can make Bitcoin alluring to investors. A decentralized network of validators verify all Bitcoin transactions in a process called mining. They are paid, oh wow, I have to update this now. They are paid 6.25 Bitcoin, it's actually half of that, when they are the first to use complex math to add a group of transactions to the Bitcoin blockchain as part of its proof of work mechanism. So when you hear somebody say Bitcoin is made up out of thin air, you can turn around and say, no, it's not, it's proof of work. And then just look at them. Don't say nothing. You will expose their ignorance. You'll expose their lack of knowledge. They're just talking. Like my dad used to always mess with my boys when they were fussing with them as babies and growing. He was like, you're talking loud and saying nothing. And then they get loud and he get loud. They get loud. You're still talking loud and saying nothing. That's Peter Schiff and all these other clowns. They're talking loud and saying nothing. It's made up out of thin air. It's proof of work. And then shut up. And they're going to be like, well, what is that? Huh? You know what proof of work is. Let me ask the question. If you do not know, because you're here to learn, if you do not know what proof of work means, type me in the chat box. It's okay if you don't. There's no such thing as a stupid question in our community. We all had to start somewhere. But Bitcoin is proof of work. At the current Bitcoin price, wow, I got to change that again. 6.25 Bitcoin is worth about $193,000, a decent incentive for miners to keep adding blocks of Bitcoin transactions running smoothly. Let me make a note. Slide 8, I need to update. So I can change that. That's the one thing I say about crypto. Nobody can call themselves, you're the crypto expert. Maybe all the way up till today, but things change. How many YouTube videos are there right now talking about this and probably still showing 12 Bitcoin or 50 Bitcoin in the halving? These things got to be updated. We got to stay current on this. So those blocks of transactions are added roughly every 10 minutes. And the Bitcoin code dictates that the reward for miners is reduced by half after every 210,000 blocks are created. That happens roughly every 4 years in periods that are often accompanied by heightened Bitcoin price volatility. Let me ask another question. Is the US dollar proof of work? And what is backing the US dollar? Type it in the chat box. Again, there's no such thing as a stupid answer. Just want to know where everybody's at. Is the US dollar proof of work? And what is backing the US dollar? Bitcoin miners invest money in specialized mining hardware. You know what, Ms. Casa, put down in the notes, because very soon we're going to be implementing again, those of you who remember our first year, where we're going to have questions at the end of the 5-day challenge that you can answer, and we'll be doing Bitcoin giveaways and things like that. Oh, I just gave myself a cool idea. We'll be doing special giveaways. Huh. Yeah, that's going to be coming. But anyways, let's see some of the answers you guys have. Is nothing and the government. No. Trust only. No and nothing. Yeah, you guys are right. There is no the US dollar is not proof of work. And the only thing backing it is trust of the government. US dollar being proof of work of a printing press. Well, I mean, that's like this piece of paper is proof of work of a printing press. Same as toilet paper. But there is no tangible asset that is powering it. It is not backed by gold. And George Bush in 2008 famously said, or 2007, I think 2008, he said, "Don't panic. Our entire civilization is based on trust. Trust us. We're going to take care of it. We're going to make sure everything's okay." I like you guys in the Facebook group. You also put down there, you put not proof of work and backed by nothing. Oh, that was Marnita. I don't see anybody else on Facebook that typed it. Okay. Marnita's got it. And you guys have to understand how far she came. In the very beginning, she asked a lot of questions. She would break it down in Marnita terms. She's getting it now. Since the halving reduces rewards and the incentive for miners to work on the Bitcoin network is also reduced, leading to fewer miners and less security for the network. For this reason, once the last Bitcoin is mined, miners will, assuming there haven't been any major changes to the Bitcoin protocol, receive rewards in the form of transaction fees for maintaining the network. So they can say, well, what's going to incentivize these miners to keep going after the Bitcoin's been mined? Transaction fees. Because by that time, there's so many transactions taking place that the fees that they're going to earn is ridiculous. That is what a self-sustaining system is all about. As some of you are learning about the whole decentralized get fit mining protocol, the whole self-sustaining is based on the fees. and a percentage of those fees going right back into the system, providing the liquidity. Same concept with Bitcoin. Actually, it got its concept from Bitcoin. The fees is what's paying the miners to continue to build the network. Same concept. If you can understand the process of Bitcoin mining, you can understand and appreciate the self-sustaining ecosystem of Get Fit mining. At present, transaction fees make up only a small proportion of a miner's revenues. Miners currently mint around 900 Bitcoin, about 34.3 million a day, but earn 60 and 100 Bitcoin, 2.2 million to 3.8 million dollars in daily transaction fees. That means transaction fees currently make up as little as 6.4% of a miner's revenue. But in 2140, that'll shoot up to 100%. Transaction fees will likely grow in an inverse correlation to, and as a compensation for, the diminishing mining returns. So as less Bitcoin is coming in, the higher the fees that are going out to the miners to make it even. It's also possible that the reward mechanism for Bitcoin could change before the final block is mined. Bitcoin currently runs on a proof of work consensus mechanism, which has attracted criticism from the likes of Tesla CEO Elon Musk for its high energy consumption. So what's powering the entire Bitcoin ecosystem is electricity. All of these mining rigs take electricity. What's powering the Get Fit miners? Your physical activity, not electricity. Well, that depends. If you're in the Matrix, Agent Smith will say, well, you humans are batteries anyway. You're providing us electricity. But your physical activity, wow, I didn't think about that before. In the Matrix, humans' body energy is powering the Matrix. Get Fit mining, your physical activity is powering the miners. Now, what they mean by the change of protocol is that in the future, Bitcoin's protocol can be voted on and changed, just like Ethereum. Ethereum used to also be proof of work, and now they moved to a proof of stake mechanism. So when is next Bitcoin halving? The Bitcoin algorithm dictates halving happens based on a certain creation of blocks. Nobody knows exactly when the next halving will occur, but experts point to May. Oh, look how outdated this is. I just wrote this January. And at that time, we thought May 2024 as an anticipated date. It was actually April. What was last Friday's date? 19th or something. But experts point to May 24th as an anticipated date. That would be almost exactly 4 years since the last one. The somewhat predictable nature of Bitcoin halvings was designed so that it's not a major shock to the network, experts say. Okay, I need to update this slide, which is slide 11. Because now the countdown clock goes to the next halving in 2028. But that doesn't mean there won't be a trading frenzy surrounding Bitcoin's next halving. Historically, there is a lot of Bitcoin price volatility leading up to and after a halving event. However, the price of Bitcoin typically ends up significantly higher a few months after. While there are many other factors influencing Bitcoin's price, it does seem that halving events are generally bullish for the cryptocurrency after initial volatility eases. Investors should be cautious about the next Bitcoin halving, and although scarcity can drive price appreciation, reducing mining activity could cause the price to level off. The key point for investors, I remember now, this information was before even the spot Bitcoin ETF went live. Wow, yeah, I need to update this whole lesson. The key point for investors to consider, however, isn't the specific dates of halving events, but to focus on the growth of the network overall. As long as the network continues to grow, the likelihood of Bitcoin fulfilling its potential as a global store of value increases. Talk about the first Bitcoin halving. The first Bitcoin halving occurred in November 2012. Look at that date, November 2012. So Bitcoin, okay, I've got another question. I want to see who's been able to look this one up for me, the exact date. When was the exact date Bitcoin went live? I know it was the end of 2008. So that puts that exactly 4 years later. So November 2012. The next halving was in July 2016. And the most recent halving, this was in May 2020. So look at those months. November, and then July, and then May, and then this one, 2024, happened in April 2028 is looking at happening in March 2028, probably February of 2028. The reward or subsidy for mining started out at 50 Bitcoin per block when Bitcoin was released in 2009. The amount drops in half each time a new halving takes place. For instance, after the first halving, the reward for Bitcoin mining dropped to 25 Bitcoin per block. The last halving will occur in 2140. At that point, there will be 21 million Bitcoin in circulation, and no more coins will be created. From there, miners will just be paid with transaction fees. Miners may shift transaction processing power away from Bitcoin once the next halving takes place, as they seek more transaction fees elsewhere to make up for the lost Bitcoin revenue. 2009, January. Thank you, Kenny and Judy. 2009, beginning, January, right at the beginning. Fewer miners would mean a less secure network, experts say. On the other hand, while the halving reduces the reward for miners, it equally lowers the supply of new coins without reducing the demand. If the economic theory holds true, which historically for Bitcoin it has, Bitcoin prices should increase dramatically in response to the supply shock. Although there is still debate on whether the historical price movement around each halving was a direct product of the halving. Higher prices would be an incentive for miners to keep processing Bitcoin transactions. What about the price impact of Bitcoin halving? The debate of whether Bitcoin halving affects the cryptocurrency price or whether they're already priced in continues to rage. According to the laws of supply and demand, the dwindling Bitcoin supply should increase demand for Bitcoin and would presumably push up prices. One theory, known as the stock-to-flow model, calculates a ratio based on the current supply of Bitcoin and how much is entering circulation, with each halving, unsurprisingly, having an impact on that ratio. However, others have disputed the underlying assumptions upon which the theory is based. Historically, after previous halving events, the price of Bitcoin has increased, but not immediately, and other factors have played a part. At the time of the June 16 halving, the price of Bitcoin was around $660. Crazy. Following the halving, Bitcoin continued to trade horizontally until the end of the month, before falling as low as $533 in August. But then Bitcoin's price shot up to its then all-time high of over $20,000 by the end of the year, an increase of 2,916%. Can you guys imagine if you had money in your savings account at a bank, and then 1 year later, that amount rose by 2,916%? You would love your bank, right? Let me tell you something. The bank probably made that much money on your money, but they didn't give you a percentage of that, 1 or 2%. Similarly, in the wake of the 2020 halving, Bitcoin's price increased from just over $9,000 to over $27,000 by the end of the year. But in the 2 months following the halving, the price didn't break $10,000. It's also important to note that other factors influenced Bitcoin's 2020 bull run, most notably growing institutional investment from the likes of MicroStrategy and PayPal's decision to enable its users to buy and hold Bitcoin. So you started having some of the big institutions started to come in. That was back in 2020. Why are the halvings occurring less than every 4 years? The Bitcoin mining algorithm is set with a target of finding new blocks once every 10 minutes. Some blocks take more than 10 minutes, some take less. This can decrease or increase the amount of time it takes to reach the next halving goal. So it's not programmed like the US government's or when we vote for president every 4 years like clockwork. It's based on a certain amount of blocks, which is 210,000. Whenever that's done, the halving takes place. It's just on average around 4 years. So for example, if blocks consecutively average 9.66 minutes to mine, it would take about 1,409 days to mine the 210,000 blocks required. 4 years is 1,461 days, including 1 day for a leap year. Yes, I know I need to stand. What happens when there are no more Bitcoins left? It is often thought in 2140, the last Bitcoin will be mined. However, if the reward is halved every 210,000 blocks, it will get smaller and smaller until 1 Satoshi is the reward. 1 Satoshi is 0.000000001 Bitcoin. A Satoshi is the lowest denomination of Bitcoin and cannot be halved. So 1 Satoshi may remain as a reward until the total amount of Bitcoin equals 21 million. There could be millions of Satoshi rewarded before 2140. So the bottom line, a Bitcoin halving cuts the rate at which new Bitcoins are released into circulation in half. The reward system is expected to continue until the year 2140, when the proposed limit of 21 million Bitcoin is theoretically reached. Here's another question. By 2140, will the US dollar still be the world reserve currency and is as it is today? Do you guys think so? Type yes or no in the chat box. If you think by more than 120 years from now, will the US dollar still be on top? I mean, in the last 100 years, the US dollar has already lost 90% of its purchasing power. Do you think it can make it another 100 years? Here's another question. What is the current oldest currency still in circulation today? Type that in the chat box. Do you know the world's oldest currency that's still in circulation today? What is that? In 2009, the reward for each block in the chain mined was 50 Bitcoins. After the first halving, it was 25, and then 12.5. And then it became 6.25 Bitcoins per block as of May 11th, 2020. You guys are right, the British pound. Bitcoin halving has major implications for its network. For miners, the halving event may result in consolidation in their ranks as individual miners and small outfits drop out of the mining ecosystem or are taken over by larger players. Now, you guys have said something very, very interesting. You said you don't believe that the US dollar in its current form can make it another 100 years or 120 years. Some of you think that it's not going to make it to the next 10 years. What happens to the United States if that is true? What happens to our way of life? Will we be able to spend the type of money we spend right now on having the world's largest military? Will we be able to still live in a debt-driven society? And if that's the case, And you might think to yourself, well, I'm not going to be here at 2140. Your descendants are. But what about 50 years from now? Some of you, God willing, will still be here 50 years from now. Your children, your grandchildren. We're talking about a fundamental sea change of American culture within the next 50 years. So if you don't do or make a change today to prepare you and your family for that, what will your family look like if you don't get yourself in front of the river of money now in the next 50 years? What is your family going to look like? See, I like to think at the big picture, the bigger scale here. So Bitcoin halving has major implications for its network. For miners, the halving event may result in consolidation of their ranks. And miners, the small outfits might have to drop out because they can't afford it. I don't think that's going to happen this time. So I'm going to have to update this lesson because now the Bitcoin halving is over. As a disclaimer, this information is intended for educational and training purposes only and should not be construed as investment advice. As with all financial decisions, you should contact your licensed financial advisor before investing in any financial instrument. And that, ladies and gentlemen, brings us to the end of this lesson. So tomorrow night, we are going to be covering the next lesson in Bitcoin halving, which is Bitcoin halving post-halving analysis. Now, I'm going to compare that lesson to what we already see happening right now, since we are less than a week removed from the last Bitcoin halving. So we're going to compare that. We have our special guest panelist for the very first time will be Mr. Leonard Long tomorrow night. On Friday night, we're going to be covering Bitcoin halving investor perspectives. Oh, wait, or do I want to do miner economics? I want to do investor perspectives. We're going to cover Friday night. And we have our guest panelists will be Miss Marnita Casa with her special guest on Friday night. So those of you on Facebook, we appreciate you guys taking the time out of your schedule to listen and learn something new. As always, that's the point. I hope you learned something new. And we will be back tomorrow night. I will be doing it public all over again. And I will keep the streaming service open during the Q&A, but only our VIPs here on the Zoom with us are able to ask questions and to engage. ILCA is about the community, and we are stronger by the community. We're stronger by the questions you ask. We're stronger by your participation, and we're stronger by you learning. See, it wasn't too long ago I asked that question of what's the oldest world's currency, and most people couldn't answer it. You guys are learning. So the questions that I'm asking, you didn't know the answers to before, but you do now. Knowledge is power. So let's jump into Q&A. I'll turn it over to Miss Casa to handle the Q&A, and we'll go from there.
Thank you so much. Can you guys hear me okay?
Uh-oh, hearing feedback.
Hold on, guys. I apologize. I multitask. So I was in the kitchen, had you on the phone, had you on the computer, because I'm learning the whole time. Okay, sorry about that, you guys. We have only 3 things that we do ask of you. The first one is, please do not unmute your mic until you have been called upon. The second one is, we do ask for 2 questions, unless we have time for more. And the third one is the most important. There are no silly questions. So if you have a question or an aha moment, please raise your hand and share it with us. Okay, raise your hand. Okay, I have a question, Mr. Ivey. A couple of them, actually. The first thing is, please, if you get a chance, we need another River of Money talk. You started going down that path a little bit, and then you pulled it back. We need that. So If you can, a river of money. Okay. Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yep. Still feedback though. Well, while you do that, I'll go ahead and handle this part. It's just the next up. So first there was a question in the chat box that Leonard asked, can the amount of Bitcoins produced go beyond 21 million? Technically, yes, it can. If the miners vote to increase the amount of Bitcoin that would be available, then it can. They could double it. Why would they do that? I'm going to give you a yes and no scenario on this, or a pros and cons. The reason why they would do this is because the whole program is geared towards 21 million Bitcoin being in circulation. Problem: in the early days, people didn't know what they had their hands on. And more than half of the Bitcoin that was mined in those early days are lost forever. So even by the time the last 21 million or 2140, the last Bitcoin is mined, there's only going to be about 8 to 9 million Bitcoin in circulation. The problem with that is the people who own the most Bitcoin, they're not going to be selling their Bitcoin. In fact, they're going to be using it as leverage and control to manipulate and control the market. Without that extra 10 million 10 billion, oh, no, sorry, 10 million Bitcoin out there, it's not completely stable. And right now, we don't see that pressure because we're not there yet. But when BlackRock's coming on board and we're now starting to see the supply crunch and we're seeing entities saying, I'm not selling my Bitcoin. So if you take that into account, then you're now looking at maybe only 4 to 5 million Bitcoin in active circulation, which is not how it was designed to be. So they could say, we're going to add another 10 million coins to make up the lost Bitcoin that will never be recovered. The reason why they would probably never vote to do that is because you have what's called Bitcoin maximalists that believe, no, we shouldn't tamper with the original program, leave it as is, and we ride or die with the current system. Just like you have in politics, the United States Constitution was written in the 18th century, in the 1700s. Now, you had a lot of different ratifications to it and different amendments to it because things change over time. There's no way the founding fathers could foresee what America would be like 200 years later. I was born on 1976, the 200th year birthday of America, July 13th, and we had July 4th. That was a big year. But life in 1976 is completely different than life in 1776. So you've got two groups out there: the strict constitutionalists who believe the word of the founding fathers is bond, and then you've got those that interpret the U.S. Constitution as a living document, not just set in stone. So it evolves over time, but we have to change. And that's where you've got conservatives and you've got liberals and you got things. So same is in when it comes to Bitcoin. And another reason why they wouldn't vote is because they would be shooting themselves in the foot. If you flood the market with more Bitcoin, what happens to the value of the current Bitcoin right now? It goes down. Just like if you own gold and they discover a new gold mine somewhere in the world that is extensive, once that gold is processed and minted and put onto the market, the value of gold that's already there, because supply is now going up, the value now goes down. What happened with your US dollar after COVID? the government printed more money. And by printing more money, you now added more supply in. So the supply you already had is less, and that's where inflation comes in. So you would create an inflationary system if they were to add more Bitcoin, but it is possible to do so if they vote to do it. All right, so I hope that answers that question there. So back to you, Ms. Casa.
I'm so sorry I fixed the problem.
There you
Okay,
go.
thank you. Miss Judy, the floor is all yours.
Okay, I just wanted to comment. I absolutely say ditto to Marnita's comment about the river of money. We definitely need that. Tonight, I think it was a brilliant lesson. I love the way it flowed through, especially for those who are absolutely brand new to Bitcoin. I think it was very easy for people to follow along. Yeah, and there was a question I was going to ask, but I completely forgot what that was. So if I remember it, I will raise my hand later.
No problem. No problem.
Thank you, Miss Judy. Okay, Miss Patty, the floor is all yours.
Oh, hold on. There you go.
Okay, Marnita, were you done with your question first? Was there
No,
something
baby,
you
that's
wanted to
okay.
finish
I'm gonna
up
wait
on?
till, no, I'm gonna wait till the end.
Oh, okay, all right. I agree with both Judy and Marnita on the river of money. And also, Brandon, there was that one lesson that you were gonna do where it talked about how you made $100 turn into thousands and thousands of dollars. But I don't remember what that story was because I've
Well,
never heard
how
it.
I flipped $30 into six figures in 3.5 months.
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't the $30. That one I know, but it was something about $100. A story that you had that you would a lesson that you would teach on something that had to do with $100. Do you remember that, Marnita?
You know how you would do the speech about the $100 and you'd have the $100, like, for example, when we were in Houston, you were talking about the $100 and you dropped it on the floor
Mm-hmm.
to make a point.
That's not what she's talking about.
Oh, okay.
That's part of the river
Oh.
of money. But
So then maybe it isn't really money. No, I thought it was something else. I'll have to go back and look. But
yeah, go
in
back
any
and
event,
let me know. I don't remember that story. How
it's
I
been a
flipped
while since you
$100.
talked about it, so I have to go back to like last year's. Oh,
And
you
Mark,
thought of
do
something.
me a favor, find that old video because we were in Houston, I think, when I did that lesson. I need to watch that one again.
I will.
Okay. So my question is, it has to do with what Leonard talked about producing more. And you said there's a factor that can be yes and a factor that can be no. But what I thought about is, yes, there's 21 million that were to be produced, but take into account how many of that is a percentage that has been lost forever.
Oh, more than 50%.
So if more than 50% of all the Bitcoin thus far has been lost forever, do you think it was because we know Bitcoin came out in 2008, but like what were the wallets then? Were they only on a specific exchange? Did they have it on a decentralized exchange or on a centralized exchange? I mean, was it just people didn't know how to hold it in a wallet, or did some of the exchanges crash, or they just lost their keys, their private keys, probably their secret phrase, probably they lost that. But what was it held in first? Does it talk about that in the white paper?
Well, yes and no. See, here's what happens. The white paper, and I'm going to mute you, Patty, for the feedbacks, but I'll bring you back up.
Yeah.
So the white paper is written as open code so that programmers can take that and create with it. So when the blockchain was built, all the current wallets that you see today, all the exchanges, all they are programs that is attached to the blockchain, that points to the blockchain. So you actually don't need these programs to do it. It's just most people don't have computer programming knowledge in order to know how to access the blockchain effectively without these codes. So the Exodus wallet, a Coinbase, a Binance, a MetaMask, these are all programs that have built push buttons that are already attached to the blockchain so that you can do what you need to do without having to know the programming code. In the early days, nobody had built it yet. So the only ones who really knew how to access the blockchain were the programmers themselves. And then they figured out, we can make some money if we can create a program that will make this user-friendly for people. And then you have the Mt. Gox of the world that were the first major exchange. And so you didn't have to use Mt. Gox. Like you might hear Lynette say in the Get Fit Mining, you really don't need the app. If you understand the programming, you can go directly to the blockchain and still do all and submit all your actions and everything. But the 99% of people don't know how to do that. So those early days, Bitcoin was stored on pieces of paper, meaning we had what's called paper wallets. And that paper wallet had, you had a private key, a public facing key as well. There was two keys you really needed to know about. And there was this old program. I got to go back to my early videos that I did that really went into detail with that programming language, but it was difficult. And the average person had no idea what they were doing, and they would mess things up and lose it. So a lot of people would have their Bitcoin on paper wallets with their private key, and they lose the paper. Others more advanced had it where, okay, now we can take that program of that paper wallet and we're storing it on our hard drive. So they will store the private key in a paper wallet form, which was more of a code on their hard drives. And then their hard drive, they would get a new computer and forget they had it, or they would throw it away. Or there was an episode of Big Bang Theory back in December 2018 or 19, where they did a whole episode about Sheldon and his buddy, like 8 years ago, mined 20 something thousand or something Bitcoin, that if they had the wallet, they'd be flat out wealthy. And the whole thing is about what happened to that laptop. Well, ultimately, he ended up giving the laptop to his ex-girlfriend. His ex-girlfriend ended up wiping the laptop and giving it to her current boyfriend, and it wasn't able to recover. So those early days, Bitcoin at the time was worth pennies. So nobody took it serious enough to say, you know what, let me invest in holding on to this thing because it might be worth something someday. So that's why it all got lost. There was no Exodus wallet today where it's easy for us to do it. Yeah, that's right. The JSON files, those early days. I still have, if I go back in early 2017, I still have some files where in lessons about white paper or paper wallets and how to transfer over. And it was even more hectic when you had to deal with altcoins because there was no, the bridges that we see today was much more difficult back then. So now it's so much easier, and it's going to be the next version of the blockchain is going to be even easier than what we have now. People aren't going to have to know how to do all this stuff. Well, I need to have a BNB MetaMask, and then I got to have an Ethereum one. Then I got to learn how to bridge from one to another. All of that's going to be seamless in the future, and that's how we evolve. So think about the internet in the 90s. Was it easy to get on the internet in the 90s? No, not as easy as it is right now. We didn't have Wi-Fi back then. You couldn't be on your phone and the internet at the same time. You'd have to put in a certain floppy disk for some. You had to hear that in the AOL dial-up for others. Internet speed wasn't fast. And so we're still going through that. So to compensate, there is that group of people, of miners that say, we need to put another 10 million Bitcoin back on the market to secure Satoshi's vision of 21 million whole Bitcoin in play. Instead of now, there's only going to be maybe 7 to 8 million Bitcoin ever in play in the future. And we don't know exactly how that's going to look, because that number 21 million broken down 8 decimals equates to trillions of dollars. So almost of all the world's money can be put in that 21 million Bitcoin. But if there's only 8 million, how's that going to work? That just means we're going to have Bitcoin be worth $10 million a coin, ultimately. So it could still do it, but it's not how it was designed and originally. So I hope that makes sense. All right.
Thank you, Miss Patty. Okay, Mr. Taylor, the floor is all yours.
Go ahead, Kenny. Oh, now you muted yourself. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. To your Big Bang reference, Sheldon actually transferred that Bitcoin to a thumb drive and put it on Leonard's keychain, and he's walking around with millions of dollars and didn't know it until he lost it. And Stewart ended up finding it at the end. He wiped it and resold it.
Because people didn't know in the early days.
Yeah. No, they didn't. But on your answer to Bitcoin, and I was trying to formulate this in my head. Bitcoin, as you referred to earlier, is basically gonna be priced out for most people in the near future. So with that, and we touched on this before, and this is for the new people, taking into account dollar cost averaging, would it be more feasible for people, even us now, especially new people coming in, to start looking at Ethereum to put their money into? Because I look at Ethereum as that's going to be like the everyday man's coin. It would still be affordable for most people.
No, your strategy shouldn't change, because when I say that Bitcoin will be priced out of most people, I mean the ability to own either one whole Bitcoin or a quarter of a Bitcoin. You can still buy Bitcoin. You'll be able to buy $5 worth of Bitcoin, even if Bitcoin is worth $1 million a coin. So priced out means that the opportunity that we have today to utilize Bitcoin to change our life, that opportunity will be gone. But as a standard day-to-day transactions, everybody can still use it, can still invest in it. It will still go up and down as far as value. Now, what will you get the biggest bang for your buck? Would it be on Bitcoin or would it be on Ethereum? Now, this is where you have guys like Professor Oscar Sistrunk, who says he is investing more money in his dollar cost average on Ethereum than he is Bitcoin, because he will get more return on Ethereum. Ethereum has more room to grow. So at 3,000 something dollars, whatever it is right now, it can end up going 40,000. So that's a big difference from 3,000 to 40,000, as opposed to Bitcoin going from 70,000 to 200,000. That's even though that seems like a big jump, that's still a little more than doubling its price. Well, Ethereum, though, jumping from 3,000 to 40,000 is a huge percentage. So you would make more money off the same amount of money that you would invest if you chose Ethereum or one of the other altcoins. The key is trying to figure out which ones are going to last over the next 5 to 10 years for you to see that type of return. I have no doubt Bitcoin's going to be here, but can we question, will Ethereum still be here? Will Solana still be here? Will BNB still be here? Will Cardano? Will Monero? Will Litecoin? Or will there be a new coin we don't even know about yet come in and all of a sudden shake things up and be top dog? So that's why we do Crypto Talk in the morning. So we're always looking for what could be that new diamond in the rough. If you listen to the Connect people, they act like all the tokens they got is going to be the future, the biggest ones ever. The next Bitcoin is what they may call themselves. So I would still keep the same strategy on Bitcoin and Ethereum. And if you want to use an alternate coin than Bitcoin, stick kind of with the top 10 in that range and continue to dollar cost average.
Thank you, sir.
No problem.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Okay, Leonard, the floor is all yours.
Hello, guys. So I have a question. A little over a year ago, we saw the FTX collapse of that exchange or whatever, and everybody always said that crypto is nothing but a bunch of scams. And 4 days ago, I'm seeing that my president of my bank, of Chase Bank, is still claiming that Bitcoin is a Ponzi scheme. How do we know that it is currency and can be used like paper dollars?
That's how do we know that Bitcoin can be used as currency?
Yes.
If somebody's willing to accept it for their goods and services. That's it. That's what it comes down to. Will a company accept Bitcoin for whatever they are producing? If the answer is yes, then that's currency. And right now, that answer is not completely yes yet, because not every business out there, in fact, most of them are not accepting Bitcoin to purchase things. Now, you may still get a Bitcoin debit card or a Visa card, but what happens at point of sale, your crypto is transferred into fiat currency. So the vendor is actually receiving US dollars and not Bitcoin, even though you are spending Bitcoin. So we haven't reached that day yet where all the vendors are saying, yeah, let's go ahead and accept Bitcoin as day-to-day currency. You can go to the grocery store and buy milk and cookies and bread. It's not even designed to be that. Well, let me rephrase that. The people have decided to use Bitcoin as a store of value, more akin to gold, more akin to property and assets and houses and things like that, like capital gains, rather than day-to-day buying stuff at the grocery store. Now, I do believe eventually it's going to move from store of value to day-to-day buying. And here's how this will happen. If there is a huge market crash for whatever reason, and the US dollar goes the same way as the Bolivar or a currency in South America that have been inflated by 8,000%. And now, like if anybody went and you saw the movie Civil War, when they went to a convenience store to buy something, she pulled out $300 and the guy said, yeah, that'll buy you lunch. And then she said, no, Canadian dollars. He said, oh, okay. Well, at that time, the US dollar had collapsed in value. So the store owner is going to take whatever is of value. So the Canadian dollar was far more valuable. So he said, yeah, I'll take that. So let's say we're in a scenario where the current fiat money just collapses completely. What won't collapse is gold, silver, crypto. So then you go to that same grocery store, they're saying, you might see a sign on the wall, we only accept Bitcoin as payment. We only accept Ethereum as payment or Solana as payment. Now they're accepting your currency. We're just not at that point just yet. I hope, does that make sense, Leonard?
Yes.
Perfect.
Thank
Guys,
you.
I do find,
movies. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I do find it very strange that there's at least 25 Bitcoin ATM machines surrounding me by maybe 10, 15 miles.
They're getting ready.
Thank you.
What's funny is when you're going to start seeing people trying to break into a Bitcoin ATM machine thinking they're going to get some money. That's what's going to, you're going to have criminals doing that stupid stuff. That's going to come out.
Thank you, Leonard. Is there anyone else? Okay, back to you, Mr. Ivey.
All right. So thank you guys for another great night of learning. Great questions. Oh yeah, I want to play that last video I was going to play yesterday. Let's see if my system will allow. And this is for last night. We covered what is the blockchain. And so we got an AI video that can give a illustration of what it could be. Kind of like how when I told my dad about what is using the train as an analogy. So take a look at this.
Imagine a train loaded with precious cargo chugging along a railway track. Each car of the train is a block, and the railway track, the blockchain. This train, with its cargo and track, is a simple yet powerful analogy for understanding how blockchain technology, specifically Bitcoin, functions. Start with the train cars or blocks. Each car carries a load, and in the world of blockchain, this load is a bundle of transactions. These transactions could be anything from a simple transfer of funds to more complex dealings. Each block is sealed and secured, ensuring the integrity and confidentiality of its cargo. Now, consider the railway track. Each rail on the track represents a link in the blockchain. These links connect the blocks, forming a complete unified chain. This track is not laid out in advance. Instead, it's built as the train moves along, with each new block adding a new section of track behind it. The train's journey is not a solitary one. There are many spectators or nodes along the route, each verifying the train's cargo and its journey. These nodes ensure the legitimacy of the transactions and the integrity of the blockchain. They validate each block before it's added to the chain, and once a block is added, it's nearly impossible to alter or remove, much like a train car securely attached to the rest of the train. The engine of this train, the driving force, is cryptography. It provides the power to move the blocks along the track, ensuring each block is securely attached, and each transaction within the block is verified. It's a powerful engine, resistant to fraud and tampering, making sure the train keeps moving forward securely and reliably. To summarize, the blockchain, like a train on a track, is a system of
Well, what happened?
interconnected blocks, each carrying a load
Yeah, don't freeze on me.
of transactions. The track, the chain, is constructed as the blocks are validated and added, creating a forward-moving.
Hold on a second. I think it's still loading and catching up to the load. All right, there we go.
Continuous line. The nodes, like spectators, verify each block, ensuring the integrity and security of the chain, and the engine, cryptography, powers the whole system, driving the train forward and keeping the blockchain secure. And so, the journey of the blockchain train continues, steadily chugging along its track, each block adding to the chain, each transaction validated and secured. It's a journey of innovation, of security, and of trust. So next time you think of Bitcoin, picture that train steadily moving along its track, a powerful symbol of the blockchain technology that powers it.
All right, all right. That was a good video, Leonard. Good illustration. Hold on, this. There we go. Stop sharing. It did it again. It froze up my system. You guys can still hear me, right? Give me a thumbs up. Okay, so on that note.
Imagine a train loaded with.
On that note, that brings us to the end of our lesson for tonight. We'll be back for another lesson about Bitcoin halving. Keep your eye on the news. The colleges are exploding right now, so we got to see how this impacts the markets. I see my brother from Morehouse, my Morehouse brother Lamar Slater's on. Lamar, hey, let me know if you're hearing anything, because we have a commencement ceremony for the graduates of Morehouse, and who was scheduled to be there was President Joe Biden at Morehouse College. However, the students are petitioning that they rescind President Biden's invitation to speak at the graduation ceremony. So I gotta get with my Morehouse brothers and we got to see what's the word, what's going on down there. So anyways, got a lot of exciting activity going on, and we will